Ashley Nebel, the gecko. Did I say that already? I did. Vicabulous, Mike Fernandez, and let's see, who else is here? I think I covered it. I think I covered it. The people who are in the house so far. Mike, this is your first live stream. That is great. Vicabulous, ornatus. Witch's Brew, I think it's just a matter of time. It's spreading. I was able to get my first ones just at this last expo. I don't think there are any particular problems with breeding them. They just have to spread around a little bit. And you know, ornatus is pretty decent at breeding, so hopefully it won't be too long. And the gecko, you said your isopods just die. Which species have you worked with? I see that we have Tropical Fish UK, Sandy Sizemore, Mark Z. Lemon, Pepe Rando, and Sean Meister have joined in. Great! We already got 8 likes, 18 people. This is wonderful. Well, as you might have guessed here, I am about to do a rehousing of some Porcellio ornatus, and I thought I'd do that live, just checking the temperature here, because I've been letting the dirt cool. That's not too bad. If it's only about 80 degrees on the surface there, I'm not going to worry about it too much. That looks okay to me. So, oh, and 503 menageries here. The common pill bug. Well, you might actually, the gecko, you might want to consider trying some others. They're not too difficult, but they're not the easiest one out there. Maybe you want to get your feet wet with something a little bit easier, maybe. Young lad, hello. Moth meats, greetings. So, Frank, to think, what kind of fungus? Is it a microfungus like a mold, or are you getting mushrooms growing in there, or what's going on? All right. So, why don't we start this rehousing, shall we? I'm really excited about these guys, the Porcellio ornatus Nord. I got these from Smugbug some time ago. Absolutely fabulous looking isopods, fairly big too. They have this fabulous pattern. Oh, the yellow ball clusters, none of them turn into mushrooms, huh? All right, Pepe Rondo, totally understand that. But it's, I'm glad you joined in and you can catch the replay. A lot of people have to do that. So here's some more right there. They're just gorgeous. They're a lot like Porcellio haasii, but they don't have the longer uropods, and the color is not quite as yellow. But yeah, oh, I see Ashley Nebel. This was, before I even saw your comment, I was talking about that, and then you say it. So yeah, Porcellio ornatus Nord look a lot like haasii. They are just a little less yellow, and they have shorter uropods. The males don't have as much dimorphism as the females. There's a little bit of a difference there, but not as much. And they do get really pretty big. This is the largest cultivar of ornatus that I'm aware of. I learned that from Scott at Finger Lakes Feeders. I think he's been keeping them longer than I have. And found out they were really big. So I'm moving them from a 6 quart to a 16 quart. It's about time. The colony is getting bigger. There's a few right there. They really are gorgeous. So I'm changing, yeah, I'm not just changing bin, but I'm upgrading. Upgrading bins. Here's a ton. And look, there's babies all over this. Little babies, as well as springtails all over this. So that's kind of exciting. They're definitely to the point where I need to, start switching out the bin. But let's get a good look at these little babies. Ornatus babies are kind of big when they come out. When they're monkai, they're just kind of large. And the females hang around with them for quite a while too. So, pretty neat. Love these guys. There's theropod hunter as well. Alright, so I'm figuring out where I want to put things. Remove that piece of cork bark there. This is all temporary, of course. I'm working out where I'm putting everybody. There's a bunch more juveniles. Not monkai anymore, but juveniles. There. 1 or 2 more on the top there. I'm going to just put that temporarily right over there. I see that not only theropod hunter, but Mr. Creepy Crawlers is here today. Great. Another couple of them on a little piece of egg crate. So Vicabulous, you had an ornatus white skirt pop up in your chocolate high yellow culture. Wow, never heard of that happening. That's strange. Here's a couple of them munching on a little piece of cuttle bone I just put in there. Was it earlier today or was it yesterday? Recently. And they're nibbling on that. They do like their cuttle bone. Oh, lost one. No, I didn't lose it. It hitchhiked on my finger, this little baby one. Put it back in there. So, has anybody heard of that, what Vocabulary just said? Theropod hunter, you have Armadillidium pictum. Very cool. Not a species I have kept. Got a lot of cool stuff in Europe that I've never even seen. So, Kelly Blood. Not too late to the party. We just started. So you're okay. I'm going to move some moss over from the original enclosure here. Move over the sphagnum moss. Get it going. And then move over the substrate. I'm actually going to scoot that kind of over there a little bit so I can add substrate there. We have some great comments in Patreon I'm going to be hitting in just a minute. So escaping the daily grind. Can I sell these? I cannot ship these out of state. They are not illegal per se. I have a permit to receive them, so I'm okay to keep them. I'm not okay to ship them. So I don't know what the status of permits now, if people are getting permits to be able to do Porcellio ornatus. I applied for a permit to get some Porcellio ornatus shipped to me from out of the country, and I could only do so if I were to set up an escape-proof facility. And I wasn't prepared to do that, so I declined to continue to pursue the permit. I just decided, nope, not worth it at this point. Someday I'll set up an escape-proof facility. I'm not there yet. Don't want to worry about it because I don't have the wherewithal to do that. And so I didn't pursue that. But there are some fantabulous, it's not really a word, is it? Some fantastic cultivars, both morphs and localities of Porcellio ornatus that we just dream about here in the U.S., in Spain. And that's what I was trying to get a hold of. There's some fantastic ones there. And they'll eventually make their way here, but I'm hoping to be able to keep some of those in the future. But for now, I cannot do so. There's a whole bunch more babies I'm putting in here in the substrate. I don't know if you can see in that patch that I just added, kind of wholesale. There's a ton of them in there. And a lot of them are little teeny babies. I'm going to dump the rest of the substrate right in there and go from there. There. So I think oh, did I just cover up a bunch of moss? No, I guess I kind of scooted it out of the way. That's good. This enclosure definitely needs some more moss in the corner and a little bit more substrate and lots of leaf litter. So I'm going to work on that for a second. And all right. Yeah, the ornatus really love the egg cartons. I think it's the concave surface. It allows them to get off the substrate a little bit, which is good for them. And they have their own little modules, so to speak, of substrate there. Just added a little bit more moss to the mossy side. Now I'm going to add some more leaf litter, and then I'm going to arrange the hides a little better. Here's some leaf litter for the drier side. There's a bunch of leaf litter. Okay, now I'm going to arrange these. I like to, if I've mentioned in a recent video, I like to have the hides. Maybe I can arrange the camera a little better so that some of them are really close up to the moss and some of them are further away and so on. And they like a lot of hides. So it's good for the babies too. The babies do well in this species if they have a lot of hides. Oh, I'm getting some donations here. Let's see. I got one from Minala 110. Looks like there's no comment, just a donation, which is great. Thank you so much, Minala 110. And another one from Wendy Hickson. Thank you so much. Really appreciate it. And again, no comment. If you do have any, let me know. Happy to answer those. But that's great. I really appreciate it. If every donation really helps keep Aquarimax going. So Let's see. How long does it take for ornatus witch's brew to breed? I haven't had mine very long at all, less than a month. And I don't think I have any babies yet. So I'm not sure on that one. But most ornatus take a while. Most ornatus don't reproduce right away. They have to be close to their full size before they reproduce. Not completely, but close. So let's see. Ashley, did you see a zebra in the leaves? I'll have to keep an eye on that. The leaves have been pretty dry for several days, but I'll have to keep my eye on it and see what's going on. So this leaf litter here, I collected it in my backyard. I don't spray the trees, I don't spray the grass, anything like that. And then I heated it in the oven at 200 Fahrenheit for half an hour. That's what I do. So I do both, I would say. Let's see. So my Nala 110, quick question. Crushed oyster shelling instead of cuttlebone. That should work just fine as long as it's crushed finely. Whoa. I apologize for that. My microphone just popped right off. It got caught on my tripod there and popped right off. Hopefully that wasn't too loud and scary. But answering that question, I think crushed oyster shell, as long as it's finely crushed enough, will be fine. I was actually going to add some of this crushed eggshell, I got a big old thing of it here, to this substrate when I was mixing it, and I forgot to do that. So I'm just going to add some on top. Kind of like to mix it in a lot of the time. It's good for helping to maintain pH, but this will filter down eventually and get in there to some degree. Also, and Porcellio ornatus really like their calcium. So there we go. Hopefully that helps my Nala. Crushed oyster shell should be fine. And congrats on the Porcellio Sevilla Caramel Theropod Hunter. That's awesome. Okay, so the rehousing for these guys, I guess, has concluded for now. I'm going to put the lid on, and we're going to look at some other Porcellio ornatus and work with those. Here's my lid. Just got it drilled up for some ventilation. There's a little bit of a burr on it still. Got a couple of burrs. Tried to clean it off. But that edge is going to go on the drier side right there. Let me get some more isopods for you to look at. And we're going to work with the Porcellio ornatus high yellow for a minute. Not going to rehouse those, even though they need to be rehoused. But not quite ready for that at the moment. Ran out of time preparing bins. So we're going to take a peek here and just look at them. See how they're doing. There's some right there, some of the high yellows. I see Moon over Miami's here. It's awesome. There's a ton of them right there. They're looking pretty good. See a couple of dead ones in the substrate, which is not great. That's part of the reason I want to rehouse these. I think they're running a little bit low on space. So there's a bunch more though. They're doing okay. And I think I saw some babies in here recently, but it's a small bin for this big of a group. So let's see if there's anybody over here. Yeah, there's a couple. There's a small baby right there in the middle of the screen, if I can get it to focus. Right there, pretty small baby. There's a larger juvenile. So, yep, this one needs to be done as soon as possible. Needs to be redone. But it's a beautiful species. It really is. And a beautiful, not just species, but a beautiful locality and morph there. So, did I replace, there we are. Just about to switch bins again. Here comes a bin to switch in. These are my yellow dots. Porcellio ornatus yellow dots. My third and final, sorry, knocked the camera. Third and final morph / locality of this species. Let's see, are there any bits on there? These are doing pretty well. I've got quite a few in here, but the substrate is getting old. I need to carefully replace some substrate. Recently put some eggshell in there, but there's just a lot of old substrate. So what I'm going to do is take this bin that I just used was just used to housing the Nords, and empty some of the substrate out and replace it. And we can watch them as we do so, and I can check through the substrate, make sure I'm not removing anybody. And when I do, I can put them back, like this guy here, and we can talk about comments and do all that. So, use peat moss cups. So Ashley's high yellows spend their times at the very highest points. Mine do too, inside their concave little hides. But it sounds like you're telling me something that I'm not sure I know, so I need to learn about this. It says peat moss cups, and that's where they sit on the tops by the vent. So tell me more about peat moss cups. Is this something I already know about, but I don't know it by a different name? I'm not familiar with the term peat moss cup. So are these like the little jiffy pots that people used to plant plants in? Or I'm missing the boat there and it's something entirely different? There's one dead one. But I'm not too worried when I find one dead one. I'm worried when I find multiples. Then that concerns me. There's a lot of, this is mostly frass over here, it looks like. On the drier end, it wasn't as much. So I need to come to Tinley Park in March. Apologize for that cough there. I would love to. If I can make that work, that would be cool. I would love to make a video like that. As you mentioned, Tinley Park. I have never been. People have asked me if I'm coming. I need to. I really do. I wonder if they would. My local expo is happy to give me a booth just so I can have an educational booth. And I don't know that Tinley would do that. That would be cool if they would. Maybe if enough people ask. Apparently that's how I got a booth at this at the Wasatch Reptile Expo, which is my local expo, because people asked for it, which is awesome. And so I was able to have a booth and just meet people and do some education, and that was great. And I'm planning on doing that again in April. So if anybody of you are going to be in the Salt Lake area at the end of April, it'll be April 30th, I'm going to be there again. The Wasatch Reptile Expo. We usually do it twice a year. So, Ashley, yes, the peat moss cups, okay, I call those jiffy pots. So it's probably just a regional variation on the name, or a brand name or something like that, but I know what you're talking about now. So you just put the peat moss cups and you hydrate the peat moss cups, and then you just put them in there. And that's cool. That's cool. I didn't know about that. I'm assuming you make sure you get organic ones and put those in. I need to try that out. So Vicabulus, this is a 16 quart here. Yep. These guys have been in the 16 quart for a while, a long time. In fact, I think when I originally got them, I didn't even put them in a 6 quart. I think I put them in a larger bin just to start out with. Okay. Let's see. So who got the red? Was it Sandy? You got the red officinalis. Those look really cool. And Mobius Rick. How do I decide when to change the substrate? My goal is to try to do it every 3 to 6 months, but I also look at the substrate and see how spent it is, because it depends on how old the isopod culture is. Stuff like that. A really new isopod culture obviously is not going to need it necessarily in 3 to 6 months. If you start out with a fairly small group of isopods, might not need it for a year or so. Also, number of isopods, the type of isopod, because some of them are really big substrate eaters, like giant canyons, for example. They're one of the really big substrate eaters. They'll turn it all to frass super fast, and there are others too. That's just one that springs to mind right now that really does that. And there are others that kind of leave it alone more, like Porcellio hoffmannseggi doesn't eat nearly as much as their substrate, I think. And so it depends on a lot of factors. But yeah, 3 to 6 months is like my ballpark figure, and then all those other factors play into it and change it around quite a bit. Now, where did I set that calcium? There it is. I'm going to mix the calcium in now. I'm not going to mess up where I messed up last time. Okay. So, Ashley, Tinley Park is drivable for you. I wish it were drivable for me. I mean, if I had 2 days, I could probably do it, but that's awesome that it is for you. Crystal's Pets and Plants is here. Frank to Tank, waiting for my female garter to have another litter so I can purchase one. Well, they have been mating like crazy, so I'm pretty much guarantee that we're going to get a litter next spring. Whether it's from retained sperm or they're just going to keep on mating. I'm getting them ready for brumation right now. Well, they're getting ready for brumation. I'm trying to feed them up a little bit more before they actually stop eating. And they're already starting to, their appetites are already kind of reduced somewhat. But I'm still trying to get them to eat a little bit more. At the end of the month, I'm going to stop feeding them. And in November, first 2 weeks of November, I'm going to keep them at normal warm temperatures but no food. And then the next 2 weeks of November, I'm going to keep them cool. And then somewhere in there, probably about the first week of December, I'm going to put them into brumation. And then in beginning of March or so, maybe the middle of February, somewhere in there, I'll wake them up. Ben Slusher, you got giant canyons which are caramel orange? That's pretty cool. I'd never heard of that. I'd heard of the white ones, but not of any other morphs, really. And the white ones aren't really, they're not established in the hobby at all, because as far as I know, there was only one that ever showed up, really, and didn't reproduce. So I'm just making some adjustments with moss here, and then I'm going to feed these guys. We'll watch them eat for a minute and I'll answer some more questions. Putting some moss in. Got some moss. Okay, I'm just adjusting. Let's see if we can get them eat. I see Mike Fernandez put in a sticker. Very cool. How's it going? Well, I had a good day. I actually didn't go to work today because I didn't have to. I had the day off. And I had a date with my wife instead. We had a fun day together. Did everything from doing a little bit of yard work, which doesn't sound fun, but it was because we were just doing, the fun bits, to making a pie, which was fun. So I can't complain. It's a pretty good day for me. I get to hang out with my wife. Not much better than that. So thank you so much for the sticker, Mike. Appreciate that. All right. Interesting. So Ashley, your maples and your clowns devour them. Okay. I'm going to try it. I just learned something new from Ashley. I appreciate that. I'm going to try that out. And Dan, hello, in the Philippines. Awesome. Manala 110. Maple leaves okay to collect and feed? Sure are. They're not the only leaf you should feed. If you have, if you only had one choice to feed one type of leaf, I would not choose maple, but they're perfectly good in a mix. I use them in a mix and they're great. Have a maple tree, so that's what I do. They're perfectly fine as a one component in the leaf mix. So Rod has P. scaber, A. vulgare, C. convexus, and Oacellus in the yard. So I'm going to make 4 enclosures and populate them with native springtails from a Berlese funnel. Awesome. That is very cool. I've been able to find Silisticus convexus and Armadillidium vulgare in my yard. I can't find the other two in my yard, but that's awesome. I hope that works out for you well. And let's see. Oh, Theropod hunter, the rainy season drowned all your earwigs. Sorry to hear that. I know what my wife would say if something drowned earwigs. She'd be happy. She doesn't like earwigs. Not my favorite insect either, but it's kind of sad when you have someone in a situation like that where they're not being a pest and they die off. All right, everyone. I'm going to pop into the Patreon comments. We've got several in there. Some good comments. Thank you for leaving the comments, patrons. Always appreciate that. So we're going to start out with Emmeline's comment. I think Emmy all ears is the term she wants me to use. So Emmy all ears says, I don't think I can make the live stream, but I would love to know how to keep my isopods warm enough over winter. Our house sits at about 68 degrees, and I'm a bit concerned. I'm also uncomfortable putting heat pads under the plastic bins. Any advice? Well, let me say, first of all, that you are right to be uncomfortable about putting heating pads under the plastic bins. That can be problematic for several reasons. One is that putting heating under the substrate for a fossorial species, one, it can backfire by not really producing enough heat that they can actually access, or two, which is worse, they can burrow down when they're trying to cool off and hit the warmer spot, and their instinctual reaction to dig down serves them well in the wild. It does not serve them well when the heat pad is under the soil or substrate, and that can kill them. So you're right to worry about that. But I have some really good news for you, and that is that you probably don't need to worry about a thing with temperatures about 68 degrees. Generally, most isopods will do great at that temperature. Some of them will slow down in breeding. Some of them will speed up in breeding. Generally, the tropical species will slow down quite a bit. The dwarf whites, for example, will slow down at 68. Might not even breed for you much during the winter, but they might. It kind of depends. That's sort of borderline temperature. Some of them will slow down, but they will not really have any problems. The main issue you need to be concerned about is how that changes things like airflow, temperature gradients, humidity in your house. When you're heating with a centralized, a central heating system, it usually dries out the air. So you're going to pay attention to how often you need to water your hydration stations in your isopod enclosures. Also, if you have isopods in a container that's up against an exterior wall that's a lot cooler than the room temperature, you can have condensation on the inside of the container, and that can cause problems too. So just watch for that kind of thing. But if they're not against an exterior wall, it's usually not an issue. But in general, it's just great news. You're not going to have to worry about it. 68 is going to be fine. The isopods will adapt. And I can't think of any species for which that is not true, except for maybe some of even the tropical species should be okay at 68. I don't think the cubaris are really going to like it. The tropical species like the cubaris, it'd be better if you could keep them slightly warmer, but I would not use a heating pad unless you put it on the side and you had a thermostat, maybe set it like 76 or something, and then you could do that if you really wanted to, but put it on the side of the enclosure for cubaris if you're going to do it. But not much hotter than that, something like 76. And even then, I probably wouldn't worry about it. Most people do fine. My house gets down cooler than that, and I haven't had big problems with my cubaris in the winter, although I would say that they do slow down in breeding, it seems like. But other than that, they seem fine. So generally good news, I think. All right, let's look back at the chat. I'm going to try to catch up a little bit here. Matthew Rand, I like cork bark. You can use cork bark that you find outside as long as you sanitize it correctly and all that. It's perfectly good. The main difference is that isopods eat cork bark much more slowly than they will eat a lot of other bark. So you get your money's worth in longevity in the bark. It's also very soft and light, so it's less likely to damage isopods. A large piece like this that I'm using here would be really heavy if it were another type of bark. So I could more easily crush isopods if I were using a piece like this. So I think those are the big benefits of cork. But other bark works just fine as long as you keep that in mind. And Oscar, congratulations on the gonatodes. Albogurus, is it Albogularis or Albogurus? I don't remember. But it's a kind of gecko. Pretty cool gecko, for those of you who might not recognize that genus name. So Mike Fernandez, really, some videos have springtails all over the place. I have enclosures like that with the springtails all over. They don't really hurt anything. It's a good sign because it means there's a healthy population that's helping to outcompete things like fungus gnats and mites. And Mainala, the fungus gnat outbreak. Got the sheets of the fly trap, placed them on the underside of lids. No more fungus gnats. Excellent. That's what I love to hear. I've had good luck with the sticky traps of various sorts. The catchy traps and other sticky traps are good things. So Reptilia exotics, sorry to hear about your springtail culture. Fortunately, the good news is there may be eggs in there, so just keep that culture, feed it very lightly for a week or two and see if any babies show up. I've seen things like that happen. Griddle, a good question about the rove beetles. Still trying to figure that out. I think if it were me with that box turtles tub, you got an open tub, and the catchy trap and the multiple glue sheets aren't doing a whole lot, then that's serious. That's a lot of stuff going on. I would go ahead and put some rove beetles directly into that and see what they do. I'm guessing they will help. They might take a while, but I'm guessing they'll help. And with a large open tub like that, they're probably going to have a nice population that they can keep going in that tub. So Kevin Zay, I keep my isopods in the same room as my New Caledonian geckos, and they have thermostat controlled space heater along with central heating, so no problems there. Yeah, and that sounds like that's not going to hurt anything. That sounds like a good setup. So Rod, is softwood bark toxic? Well, if it's fresh enough to have resin, like sticky resin on it, that's going to cause a problem for your isopods. It can cause a problem for your isopods, at least. If it's old enough not to have any of that, isopods can sometimes do okay with it. But as long as if it's resinous, it's not going to be a very good deal. So Matthew, where do I get my cork bark? I've gotten it from several sources. The Biodude is one source I purchased it from. New England Herpeticulture, any herp, bought it from them as well. Those are some of my main sources. And that's what I do. Like Vocabula said, buy it in bulk. I buy like a big box of it at once. It's definitely worth it. It's a lot cheaper that way. And Frank the Tank, yeah, really hungry isopods will eat cork, but it takes a lot longer than it would with an equivalent piece of wood. My Silisticus convexus, since I got them years and years ago, have eaten the original cork bark I put in there. It's like a tiny little piece compared to what it used to be. Theropod hunter, scaber ghosts and lavas could breed. Yep, same species. And unlike some things like Porcellio laevis, where we got weird things going on, all scabromorphs seem to be able to cross with each other without the least bit of trouble. Pangea has good value for bulk cork bark. Good to know. It's always good to know about different suppliers for that. And Clognog, howdy. Okay. And Ian Alicia, do isopods behave differently when they're having or about to have young? Good question. I know that some isopods, when they're about to have the young, I think they sometimes find secluded areas, from what I've been able to understand. I don't know a ton about the behavior of them in those situations, but I think they do sometimes try to find a kind of a secluded area. Great question. Clognog, how's the Pac-Man frog? Doing great. Actually, visibly larger than when we got him less than a month ago. Growing very fast. It's kind of surprising to see how fast it's growing. Doing really well. We've got some Silisticus convexus Ukraine pied in there, as well as some springtails. It looks like it's going well. Okay. So Random T, tried Rapashi morning wood for the first time today. Wow, what a feeding response. Yeah, they do like that stuff, don't they? Speaking of, well, I just noticed that Clognog's question is similar to a question in Patreon, so I'm going to pull those up and look at the questions on Patreon and answer some of those. So Kevin Zay asked, what do you know about domino roaches? Think about getting a few. I don't know a lot because I've never kept roaches. I've read Peter's entry on them on Bugs in Cyberspace. He breeds and sells those. He's got some in stock right now, from what I understand. And he mentions on his site that they eat largely leaf litter, but they'll also eat things like bug jelly and fish food pellets, and it's good to vary their diet with those. I know only the adults have the cool pattern. I think they're pretty neat, and if I could keep roaches, I'd probably keep some because I think they look cool. But that's about all I know because I've never kept them, so that's about it. So Mackenzie Bowling has a question. Says, hello Russ, have you kept terrestrial mollusks? If so, what was your experience with them like? I have kept a few species of terrestrial mollusks. In all cases, they have been snails. I've never kept slugs. I know some people do that, but I haven't. When I was a kid, I lived in Washington State where we had banana slugs that were like 6 inches long and other very large slugs. And was my job to sprinkle salt on them, so I didn't think of them as pets. And anyway, but the snails, I've always liked snails. I kept some pet snails. I kept a Cornu aspersum, I believe the scientific name is. It's an invasive snail from Europe, but it's now in the US. It's established in my state. When I was a kid, I had one named Herman, and I would feed him various vegetables and calcium sources, and he would crunch through them. You could hear audibly the little chewing, and that was fun. I kept Herman for probably a year or so. I don't know exactly. Released it back in my backyard. I've kept other snails. Right now I have a very tiny species of snail in one of my bioactive crested gecko enclosures. Somebody sent me some to try out as a member of a cleanup crew. They stay tiny and they breed in there and do well. I need to check on them. I haven't really looked and checked on them for a while, so I should probably do that. But I haven't had a lot of experience other than that kind of thing. I remember catching a native species of snail that lives in the mountain canyons here. I want to say Oreochromis. I don't think that's the right genus name, but it's something like that. They're a live-bearing terrestrial snail that only gets about an inch in diameter in the shell. They come in a lot of different patterns. They have white ones with stripes, and they have brown ones in different colors. I think they're like the same species but polymorphic, something like that. Pretty cool. I kept those for a while and was astounded to see that they were live bearers. I hope that helps, Mackenzie. That's about all I got for you there. So Abby Manali says, I recently acquired Porcellio expansus and have them housed in a 6-quart tub. Currently there are 10 of them, mixed of young adults and juveniles. I've read that the males can be territorial. I've heard similar things, yep. Would you recommend moving them into a 15-quart bin right away or wait until they reproduce? I think if they're doing okay and you're not noticing stress, you're not noticing death, you're not noticing problems, you could probably keep them in there a little longer until they reproduce and the juveniles get a little bigger, but you could move them too. Just move them with the current substrate so the move is with as little stress as possible. That would be my my suggestion. Kind of like I did with these guys. I took out half the substrate and replaced half approximately. That's going to be of minimal stress to them. If you do a similar thing where you put half the new substrate in this 15-quart container and then put all of the substrate from the 6-quart container in, you'll have minimal issues with it, I would say. That's my suggestion for you. And then Heather Cellini says, hey Russ, and this is similar to Clognog's question, if I collect wild mushrooms for my isopods, is there anything I should be wary of? Will they eat any species, or can some be dangerous for them? Really great question. I have only fed mushrooms that I have purchased to my isopods. I have purchased organic mushrooms, washed them well, and given them to my isopods, and they eat them, and they're fine. But these are mushrooms that are edible for humans, and therefore I felt that they were a good bet. I could give them to my isopods. I don't know enough about wild mushrooms. I know there are toxic ones out there. I'm not sure which ones are which. So I have not attempted that. This isn't really good mushroom country either. It's kind of an arid place. I mean, you can find mushrooms here, but it's not as easy to find them maybe as it is some other places. So I haven't tried to feed them any, and I would be a little concerned about it. I know that some people do it with great success. I just don't know how to tell my mushrooms apart. So I would be a little concerned about it. So I know that Wally made a video on it recently, and he has great success with that, but he probably knows more about mushrooms than I do. Frank the Tank, lawn shrimp. When I was in Florida, I did find a lawn shrimp, which is a terrestrial amphipod, for those of you who are wondering more about that. So an amphipod is a fairly close relative of an isopod, and I remember collecting one, but I only found one because I thought if I could collect enough of these to make a culture, if I had found a dozen or so, I probably would have brought them home. But I only found one, so I didn't. I just released it. But they're pretty cool. I believe Smugbug and some other people sell them in their isopod shops. So let's see. Did you get the frog from Josh's Frogs? We got our frog from Mark's Ark, which is a pet store here locally. They were selling it at the expo that we were at, and that is where we got that one. It was pretty cool. The expo that we were at doing educational programs, and my daughter was there, and she really wanted the frog, and she had been wanting one for a while, and so we pulled the trigger on that while we were there, and I think it was a great decision. She loves the frog, I love the frog, it's working well. So I'm going to look at some other isopods now, because I think maybe you're tired of looking at hungry Porcellio ornatus. I mean, I could look at them for days, but maybe not everybody could do that. I'm going to look at these guys. This is my favorite morph of Porcellio scaber, and I don't say that how can I say this? I love this morph specifically. Porcellio scaber is not my favorite species, so to speak, but I love this morph a lot. It is awesome. I really like the orange koi too. I got some from Wally recently and really like those. Dalmatians, I guess, are not my favorites because they don't breed very well. They breed, but they don't keep the pattern very well over generations. And so there you go. Not a huge fan of the Dalmatians for that reason. You have to cull them a lot, and even when you do, it doesn't always work as well. So Minala, I didn't see the isopods in question there. They may have just been fighting over food because I just fed them. But there could be some mate guarding that you were seeing as well. That's not uncommon for the isopods to guard a mate once they have mated, to try to keep other males off the female, and they'll ride the back of the female for a while, and female looks like she's trying to buck them off. I don't know if I get a feeding response out of these guys. I put some pellets in there, but we're going to try it. I saw a little one going for the pellets. Okay, so Gretel. I'm scrolling back to try to see your original question. I'm not seeing it. You can go ahead and repeat it. I don't mind if you repeat it just to make sure I catch it. So Wendy, you're having a hard time finding springtails in the US. Oh, I think I found your question, Gretel. I mean in the UK, sorry, Wendy. UK, there are ridiculous prices in the UK. That's interesting. I wonder what's going on there. Maybe you can find a local hobbyist who's willing to just work with you there. I hope so. Oh, Random T, we got a super chat. Thank you so much. I'm really happy to help, and I appreciate that. So, Gretel, I think I found your question. Your question was about the rove beetles. Rove beetles can fly. But they usually don't. They only fly to disperse. They're not flying around like the fungus gnats. Since I introduced them into my bug room, I've only seen one. That entire time, it was not flying. I have not seen a single one fly since then. But I do think they're established in the room because the one I found was at some distance from the enclosures that I released them into. And I'm having far fewer issues with fungus gnats. So yes, they can fly. They do not fly very often. They don't seem to be attracted to people's noses like fungus gnats do. That was one of my questions when I was getting into them. Now we're getting a feeding response there a little bit. And so I think they're a lot better. It's a lot better with the rove beetles than it is with the fungus gnats. So. And Kevin, if your space wasn't an issue, we have one of every reptile or invert native to Michigan that I could legally keep. Well, that sounds like a pretty fun goal. I feel you there. So Emerson, with rotting bark, wood, and rocks, you have to be really careful, especially with the rocks, because rocks can explode if heated, certain kinds of rocks that trap water inside them, so I wouldn't recommend this with rocks. But with the bark and the wood, I put that kind of stuff in my oven at 200 Fahrenheit. Make sure it can't touch any elements. I put it in, a glass container, and at 200 Fahrenheit, it's not likely to burn. And put it in there with a piece of wood it insulates, the wood insulates the center of the wood, the outside of it does. So you want to bake it longer than half an hour. With leaves, usually half an hour is enough. With wood, you might want a couple of hours. So Ashley, yeah, the calico fire or the embers, those are pretty nice too. I like the ones with the higher color that keep it. Yeah. That's true. I'm with you there. So Clognog, you found large spiders near a river, think they're giant fishing spiders? Very well could be, like the Dolomedes species. Those are pretty cool. When I was a kid, spider story here, I spent time in the summers, a couple different summers, had extended vacations in Texas, near the Dallas-Fort Worth area, not exactly in that area, but out in the country near there, where my grandma used to live. She was right up against, and she was like the caretaker for this ranch that was gigantic. I don't remember exactly how big it was, but it was huge. There were 5 different ponds on the ranch, and there were cows and horses and stuff. But there were box turtles everywhere. When they would feed the cats, the box turtles would come out of the bushes and steal the cat food. There were frogs and snakes and turtles and everything all over the place. Within getting out of the car, within 15 minutes, I think I had found 1 blind snake and a couple of lizards, like that fast. It was a great place. But I'm getting sidetracked. I wanted to say something about the Dolomedes fishing spiders. On one of the ponds, specifically, we would see these Dolomedes fishing spiders, huge spiders running on the surface of the water with stripes on them. Some of them had powder blue striping on them. They were really cool. So I think that's what you're talking about, some Dolomedes fishing spiders. So Rod, that sounds interesting, cloning mushrooms. So I saw somewhere where Wally said that he knows 2 or 3 safe mushrooms and leaves the others alone. That seems like a safe way to go because he knows how to do that. I probably should have known that from a previous video, but I haven't seen his recent one yet, and it's been a while since I saw the other one, so I probably messed that up a little bit, but I'm glad you clarified that, Wally. 503 Menagerie. Fungus gnats dive you on Zoom calls all the time. Dive bomb you. Yeah, this is what I've noticed since I've gotten the rove beetles. I let them go for a couple months without using my catchy, and now I use my catchy and I use the sticky traps again, and I catch some fungus gnats on them, but it's not as bad as before, and they don't seem to be around the rest of the house. They used to be more around the rest of the house. So I would say that the rove beetles seem to be working. And Random T, I wonder if the electronic device you destroy the fungus gnats is the catchy that I use. It's an electronic device that has a UV light that attracts the fungus gnats and a fan that draws them down onto a sticky trap. And I actually did an unboxing and review of it. I tried it out and it worked great. So that's what I use. Oh, some other people are talking about it too. Oh, Clognog, you're getting that spider is growing. That's cool. I wonder if that's what it is. Stefano Reina Julia. Energetic, feisty, fly a lot. What kind of species is that? I'm not even sure what that is. So Sandy, you boil the leaves and bake them a bit so they dry, and a lot of people boil them too. I've done that, I guess, before. I don't do it often, but I've done it. So Manala, I do have dart frogs. I have a trio, 1 male and 2 female Dendrobates leucomelas, the bumblebee dart frogs. I have bred them a couple of times, and they're pretty awesome. What to do about fruit flies? I actually have a video, Sandy, on fruit fly traps that work really well. So if you do Aquarimax fruit fly trap search, something like that, if one of you, actually Sandy, since you're a mod, if you want to do a search and then post that in the chat, you could do that, or if somebody else wants to do that. This video indicates how to make a trap. The base, just to give you a really quick rundown, and then you can watch the video. Vinegar is the base of the trap, but there's some other few ingredients in there, and you poke some holes in the lid of a jar, and it's really good about, it really catches those fruit flies. Does a good job. So Gretel, this was my, the advice that Kyle gave me when I bought the first group of rove beetles. He said, don't turn the catchy on for the first few weeks. I think he said 2 to 3 weeks when you're getting the rove beetles are getting established. Don't have catchy traps or any kind of sticky traps out. And then once you give them a chance to kind of establish themselves, then you can go ahead and use the catchy traps. And you might catch some, but you won't catch enough to cause a problem with the population. That was kind of the idea. Oh, Kevin working on captive bred 5-line skinks. 5-line skinks are pretty cool. Yeah, so that's what I would say. With the ones you come from outside, it works perfectly on those as well. It works on both. So Minella, the catchy light, I have an Amazon affiliate link in the video about the catchy. So check out that video. Someone wants to post that up, that would be great. And then you can get one. They're pretty awesome. Oh, okay, theropod flower beetle. So Vicabulus, you've noticed the coffin flies, also known as the forehead flies, if I'm understanding correctly. Yeah, you'll get those occasionally too. And I've noticed those as well, a few of those recently, and I think it may just be the season. Does anyone use mushrooms to help ferment beetle substrate? That sounds cool. Thank you, Frank, for posting that. Gretel, you need 20 catchy traps. Wow. Here's another tip. Another tip for everybody who's interested in the catchy. Okay, they come with a few traps. Let me just grab something. Okay. Woo! Sorry, I'm tripping over things over here. I'm going to grab something because I want to show you this. Okay. In my catchy, when it came with a small set of these sticky traps, and this has a paper that you peel off. It's one-sided, so this side is never sticky. This side is sticky but has like a wax paper on it, and you peel that off and you put it in your trap. See, here's the paper, and this part is sticky, okay? So you put that in the bottom of your catchy trap. These are expensive. The refills are expensive, okay? What I do is on Amazon, I buy the yellow sticky traps, which are tons cheaper, but they're rectangular. Then I just set this on here, and by cutting it carefully, I can get 2, and I have to kind of play a puzzle, put it together like a puzzle a little bit, but I can get 2 traps out of one of these. But not only 2 traps, because what I do is I cut one out like this, and then I cut another one out like this and use another piece and combine them so I get one piece that looks like this. It's, fills the same footprint. And then you can flip it over and use it again because both sides are sticky. So you get 4 times the amount of trap for every one of these that you use. And one of these is something like 3 times as cheap as one of these. So that's like 12 times as cheap. So that's what I suggest you do. It's way better. So it'll come with a few of these, but just buy these sticky traps and do like I just said, and something like 12 times cheaper. I don't remember the exact math that I did, but I did do the math at one point. So much cheaper. Okay, and thank you, Cindy, for posting that. Clognog, I've never had assassin bugs, but sounds cool. I've been wanting to do it, but I don't know if my wife would go for it. I do love Millipedes 503 Menagerie myself, too. Eating wild mushrooms is safer than skydiving. You have plenty of time to think about your next move. And 503 Menagerie, that's my hope. I hope you can all buy more Isopods now because you saved some money on traps. Oh, you got your first tailless whip scorpion at Tinley Park? That is so cool. Love those guys. So, Gretel, I think I have an affiliate link to the yellow sticky traps in the catchy video. Not entirely sure. but that's a good thing. I should make sure I post that. Maybe I can try to post that in the description to this video or something. Oh, blackheaded fire millipedes. I don't know if we have those in the US or not. We have some centrobola species. I don't know if we have the blackhead ones or not, but they do sound cool. I do love the centrobolus. That was almost the first genus I got into. And I'm going to throw out some other isopods. Any specific requests, anybody? I'm going to show you the American magic potions I got from both Critters and More and Bitty Bugs, because they're doing well. So they're breeding now. It hasn't been that long that I've had them, but I've seen some babies in here. So should we check those out? It sounds pretty fun to me. Okay. There are a couple right there. A little bit difficult to see because they're hiding out in the, turn that over carefully. There's a little group of them. I want to see if we can see any juveniles, like little tiny juveniles. There's a juvenile. Some of those are juveniles, but see some really tiny ones hopefully. They have been breeding in here. Well, that isopod is not. That looks like a Porcellio ornatus right there. That is a Porcellio ornatus. High yellow. That Porcellio ornatus high yellow. It's just, I knew it was in the video. I'm gonna take that little guy and put it where it actually goes. In with the Porcellio ornatus high yellow, huh? Where did I put the high yellows? Just 1 second while I put this little guy back where it goes, huh? That's kind of funny. Somehow, I was just working with that bin. There it is. That's the bin where the high yellows are. There it goes. Oh, that's funny. And thank you, Wally, for posting the Catchy Trap video. And oh yes, it's taking too long. Porcellio Hoffman's egg eye. They do get huge, don't they? What is one we haven't seen in a while? Oh, there's some little ones. There's a little one right there. Lots of springtails. Little one right there. There's a couple of little babies right there, and a billion springtails. So there you go. It's doing well. There's Dave right there. Dave's running off. Say U.S. potions get bigger than Japan. Yeah, I think I've heard that too. I haven't had them very long, but that's what I think I've heard. That's where witch's brew come from. That's awesome. Love it. Yeah, the American magic potions apparently come from a line that gets pretty big as far as Armadillidium vulgare goes, so that kind of makes sense. Let's see. Should we check out the Paracai bin? This was another bin. Apologize, just stepped on my microphone cord. Hopefully that didn't hurt anybody's ears. Keep doing that today. What's my problem? These came from both Bitty Bugs and Critters and More. Armadillidium Paracai. Let's see what we got here. Oh, there's a load of them. And some of these were born here, I believe. Are the potion ones hard to breed or just new to the hobby? They are a little bit newer and a little slower to breed, and some, at least I think it's the Japanese strain of them that is male heavy or can be male heavy. They've been breeding really well for me now. The Magic Potion Japanese. Well, let's take a look at those in a second. But the Americans are apparently breeding well too. Yeah, these apparently these are breeding well, and I've had babies here. So Theropod hunter, I don't think they get as big as Gestroy or Granulatum, but they do get large for an Armadillidium vulgare. So Levi, you're getting, or Levi, sorry, you're getting the, you have some high yellow Armadillidium vulgare. That's super cool. I hope they breed for you well. I find the wild types, when you collect them, they don't often breed as well right away. It takes some generations to get going. That was my experience with them. When I bred mine, it took a while for them to even kind of acclimate. All right, I'm bringing up the camera here so we can take a look at these. These are Magic Potion Japanese line. A little different. Apparently these don't have as bright colors. And, oh, Mike, thank you. Thank you for joining in. And thank you for the stickers. Thank you for all the comments. I really appreciate all the support. I guess it's just about time to quit, but a couple more questions here. What's the most exotic isopods you have? Rare, unusual, expensive? Well, rubber duckies are up there. See, look at all these Japanese Magic Potions. They're doing really well for me. You can see lots of different sizes going on. But there's not as much yellow in terms of the markings. There's some, not as much as there is on the American. I think that's one of the biggest differences. Let's see. I guess rubber duckies are among my, there's a ton in there, see? What do we got under here? Quite a few, not as many, but decent number. And Mr. and Mrs. Morelia. Oh, thank you. Appreciate the super chat. And Manala as well. Thank you so much for the super chat. So, rarest isopods. The most expensive are probably the rubber duckies. Porcellio expansus are probably my most expensive Porcellio that I have. And I'm just looking over here to see what I've got that is any more rare or expensive than those two. I think those are probably it, to be honest. Witch's Brew are kind of a newer, rarer morph of Porcellio ornatus that I now have. I didn't even show those. I should show those because they're new and you can see how they're doing. They're fairly rare in the hobby, I guess. So let me show some of those. Just maneuver some things around here. This is my very new bin of Witch's Brew. Hopefully we can see some in here. I was messing around in here today. There's one. Right there. They're not terribly impressive when they're really young. But there's a little bit moldy in here because it's new, which is not terribly exciting. It's not enough to really cause alarm per se, but not too happy about the mold. Have to be careful about that. But there's one of them. I do have some Magnificus, and I guess they're a little bit rare too, but not super rare, but kind of. I hope that hope that answers the question. Sorry, I'm really tripping over my cords today. It's kind of frustrating. Anyway, I guess we're getting near the end of the stream here, and I was pretty excited to see that my Japanese Magic Potions are doing fairly well. So, did that help, Mr. and Mrs. Morelia? Did that basically hit your question? And Manala, you have a question about display vivariums for isopods. I do. I have a couple in my office. One's a microvarium from microvarium.com. I've got a couple here that are just set up for viewing. Let me show you one. One of them in my office is set up with a number of different species, not in populations, but just individuals, to see how they do as individuals together of different species. This is a display enclosure that you can see through pretty well on the side, but not with this camera the way it's set up. So I'm just going to pop it open here. You can see it's got Porcellionides purinosus party mix in there. But one of them I have set up with Gestroy, and they're going crazy in there. They're doing really, really well. And they're very visible. Whenever I feed them, they're out and about for hours, and it's extremely visible. So I would say Gestroy is doing really well. These do really well in these display enclosures. I'm experimenting with some others too to see how they do as well. So I hope to be able to give more information about that in the future. All right, well, I am just about out of time. I am going to be doing an unboxing soon. It probably won't be out for a few weeks because I've already got videos scheduled ahead of time for a couple of weeks, but it'll be coming out soon and I'm really excited about it. So I'm not going to give any spoilers except to say that it's an Isopod I've been waiting for a long time, and they're a little hard to get. So Mr. and Mrs. Morelia, I would give you a better answer, but I have to wait until I post it or I would steal the thunder of the video. So thank you everybody for joining in. Thank you for all the super chats. Really appreciate that. Thank you for all the participation, whether you're just here in the chat or through Patreon. I appreciate it all. Really, really helps me out. And I'm really excited to get this unboxing. So keep your eyes open for that. I'm really having fun with the species profile. So thank you so much for your support on this last one. The 10 mistakes with isopods. It's done really well for me. One of my better videos that I've released in terms of engagement with audience. So thank you so much for watching that. And if you haven't watched it, then keep your eyes open. I also got another unboxing coming up that I've already done. And then I've got a species profile that is coming up this week too. So I will look forward to seeing you soon. Thank you all so much. Stay safe, stay healthy, and just happy to have you all here.